Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining from different time zones. Excellencies, dignitaries, eminent speakers, experts, and online audience. I welcome you all to this high-level policy dialogue on stewardship for achieving water partnerships for peace by Transversality Systemic Approach, organized by India Water Foundation in commemorating the World Water Day, and it becomes more pleasurable to have you all here, especially since today we are also commemorating India Water Foundation's 16th founding day. We are Sweet 16 today. Currently, nearly 703 million people lack access to water. Approximately 1 in 10 people on the planet and over 2 billion do not have safe drinking water services. The United Nations predicts that by 2025, 1.8 billion people will be living in countries or regions with absolute water scarcity. With the existing climate change scenario, almost half the world's population will be living in areas of high water stress by 2030. In addition, water scarcity in some arid and semi-arid places will displace between 24 million and 700 million people. By 2030, water scarcity could displace over 700 million people altogether. This crisis has far-reaching implications for global health, food security, education, economics, and politics. Climate change also exacerbates water scarcity in many parts of the world. As water resources dwindle, conflicts and humanitarian issues over access to clean water will likely increase. Addressing this complex and multifaceted crisis requires understanding its causes, impacts, and potential solutions across countries and communities. Water is subjected to conflict at all levels: international, national, sectoral, etc. So how do we transform this resource into a tool for peace? To analyze the same, we have organized this event bringing together leaders and experts from across sectors, multidimensional organizations to deliberate and serve as a space for discussing recommendations and gather support and commitment for joint action towards a more peaceful and a water-secure world. To initiate this session, I request Dr. Arvind Kumar, President, India Water Foundation, to set up the tone for this event. Dr. Arvind Kumar is a strategist and key influencer in development sector with more than 28 years of experience as an author, columnist, water activist, and specializes in concepts like ecosystem-based adaptation, water energy food nexus, with specific emphasis on transversal approach of interlinkages between water, environment, and SDGs. Dr. Arvind Kumar, please.
Thank you, Sweta. Ms. Armida Al-Biziana, Under Secretary General of United Nations and Executive Secretary of UN ESCAP. Mr. Eric Tardu, Director General, International Office of Water and Vice President, World Water Council. Mr. Eddie Moore, Rector, IHE Delft, Institute of Water Education. Ms. Dani Gaylord, International Policy Advisor, Swedish Water House, Stockholm, International Water Institute. Mr. Atul Bagai, Head, UNEP India Office. Mr. Rajan Ratna, Deputy Head, UN ESCAP, SSW Office. So good afternoon to all, and as the President, India Water Foundation, I welcome all you to this high-level policy dialogue. We are pleased to organize this crucial policy dialogue on the occasion of foundation of India Water Foundation. In this journey of 16 years, I can proudly but very humbly mention that our inputs were instrumental in initiation of several missions and programs in the country, like in the water and the sanitation sector, health and food, Poshan Abhiyan, and many more. So we are one of the few civil society who envisaged bringing northeastern states from parish-free to mainstream and witnessed the trajectory of growth and development of a state like Meghalaya, Sikkim sector. As a partner in progress, we are committed work collectively to provide vital support to communities and fostering local, national, and regional and international partnerships for development. Today, we have all assembled here to deliberate on the subject of water, which is a foundation of life and livelihoods and is a key to sustainable development. As, a, as per the UN World Water Development Report 2024, one quarter of world's population face extremely high level of baseline water stress, withdrawing over 80% of their annual renewable freshwater supply. Water stress has important implications for social stability, and water deficits can be linked to 10% of the increase in migration worldwide. Successful implementation of the targets of the water goal as a whole will serve as a foundation for achievement of the most of the 17 sustainable development goals. What is not just a sector, but a development connector, and as the economic indicator, it is a catalyst which links social, economical, and environmental SDGs and is a gateway of bridging the gap between the socio-economic and environmental pillars of the sustainable development. Water is needed across all the sectors to produce food, energy, combat climate change, provide healthy ecosystems, and more. The impact of climate change, geopolitical unrest, and pandemics make mass migration, hyperinflation, and other crises can increase water access inequalities. These events also create policy windows which can be used to enhance resilience and forge adaptive capacity, fostering prosperity through water contributes to the achievement of peaceful outcomes. Cooperation over water resources has generated positive and peaceful outcomes, ranging from participatory and community-led initiatives that have relieved local tensions to the settlement and peace building in post-conflict settings and transboundary watersheds. Conversely, inequalities in the allocation of water resources, in access to water supply and sanitation services, and in the distribution of socio-economic and environment benefits can be counterproductive to peace and principles and norms that provide the basis for transboundary water cooperation, which can avoid conflict and contribute to stability and peace. Unfortunately, only 32 water, which have least 90% of their transboundary basin areas covered by an operational agreement for water cooperation. Coordination within the water sector and with other sectors needs to be prioritized and strengthened. Equitable governance agreements designed to manage competing demands are required to navigate tensions and redress injustice or reallocating across water uses and navigating difficult, sometimes conflicting policies, objectives involving agriculture, energy, health, infrastructure, and investment. The government across the world are accelerating actions toward achieving SDG 6, but it is not possible through government intervention alone, but need collective effort. Water, energy, agri-food, environmental, and waste sector cannot be seen in silos. Well-designed plans should be customized as per contemporary needs in an integrated manner, incorporating transversality approach by interlinking vertical linkages between water, food, energy and access, and ecosystem-based adaptation approach with horizontal indicators like health, education, agriculture, gender, etc. Open and transparent sharing of data and information is essential to effective water management. Therefore, promoting peace and prosperity within society, leveraging water for peace also involved governance arrangements that both avoid and manage disputes. The most prominent mechanisms include international framework and norms for meeting the human rights to water and protecting water sources and systems, particularly during armed conflicts and in transboundary settings. When we cooperate on water, we create a positive ripple effect, fostering harmony, generating prosperity, and building resilience to shared challenges. We must act upon the realization that water is not only a resource to be used and completed over. It is a human right intrinsic to every aspect of life. All the dignitaries and expert speakers shall share their perspective, and I am sure these interventions shall enable us to chart out some concrete recommendations from this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for setting up the tone of this event. Now a call for Ms. Armida Salcia Alisjabana, Under Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of the UN ESCAP, for her chair address.
Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to address this event, which will explore the important topics of water for security, peace, and political stability. Clean and abundant water is the basis for a prosperous future for all. Farmers and both rural and urban populations are connected by the water cycle that provides the sustenance and healthy ecosystems that are the lifeblood of our economies and societies. The need for investment in sustainable water resource management cannot be underestimated. The demand from fast-growing cities and thirsty fields is growing, while more than half of the 4.7 billion people in the Asia-Pacific region face some degree of water scarcity. Over-extraction and pollution degrade freshwater systems, while population growth outstrips infrastructure investment in many countries, leading to wasted water and vulnerability to drought and floods. Climate change will exacerbate all of these challenges. While the Pacific Islands face sea level rise and contamination of freshwater sources, the retreat of the glacier of the Hindu Kush Himalaya region will mean significant changes in water availability for some 1.5 billion people. Therefore, we must keep a laser focus on reducing greenhouse gas emission and delivering on net zero commitment in this region. Our research shows that emission reduction targets by 2030 are off track compared to the IPCC emission reduction trajectory recommended to contain global warming to within 1.5 degrees Celsius. At the same time, we must build our capacity and institutions and management models to better govern these water resources, in addition to shifting water use patterns and upgrading infrastructure. Against this background, please allow me to share 3 critical measures for strengthening water stewardship in the region. First of all, water management system must be based on natural system. System thinking means that all stakeholders must recognize that hydrological systems extend beyond national and administrative borders. This is a foundational principle for success in confronting the looming challenges. We need sustained dialogue and cooperation in transboundary river basins, but also in river basins that cross administrative boundaries within countries. Then cooperation on water governance across transboundary river basins must be strengthened. Here, we can learn from examining the arrangement in place in different parts of the Asia-Pacific region. The Mekong River Commission, an intergovernmental body initiated by the United Nations over 70 years ago, now makes data available to the public on water levels. Transparent data sharing between countries can be a strong foundation for cooperation that will last. Finally, we must develop financing strategies that sustain the health of every stage of the water cycle, including flows of water for nature. This will mean a holistic financing strategy that engages a wide number of stakeholders. This includes farmers, landowners, private sector actors who capture a large proportion of benefits from water, tourism operation, hydropower developments, and water utilities, beverage producers, as well as high-consuming entities, among others. We will continue to engage with the critical issues raised by this forum. The UN family is preparing for the release of a new system-wide water strategy. ESCAP's work with agencies in the region and as part of UN Water also continues and will serve as a platform for sharing lessons learned and facilitating cooperation among governments. The International Year of Glaciers Preservation in 2025 and the International Conference on the Water Decade of Action in Dushanbe will be important rallying points for action. I congratulate the India Water Foundation for the milestone marked by today's event and for its role played in connecting people for a prosperous future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your motivating speech, and wishing best wishes for India Water Foundation. And I understand that it's very important to have sustained dialogues and cooperation in transboundary basins, and also financing strategy is very crucial in sustaining the challenge, addressing the challenges of the water crisis. Now, a call upon Mr. Eric Tardu, Dr. Eric Tardu, Director General of the International Office for Water and Secretary General of the International Network of Basin Organizations. He is an environmental engineer with a PhD in membrane filtration applied to urban wastewater treatment. After serving for French ministries for agriculture and environment, he held successive responsible positions in the public sector for national, regional, and local authorities, implementing policy regulations, designing multi-stakeholder strategies, and plans of measures. Since 2022, he also serves as Secretary General of IWRA and Vice President of the World Water Council. Dr. Tardu, please.
Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon to everybody. It's early morning here in Paris, and in Europe. I see different European colleagues here. Thank you very much to the India Water Foundation for organizing this dialogue and for the invitation. Indeed, I am very happy today to share a few messages. I think I will share a very few slides if it's possible, but I'm starting to with this IWRM concept, integrated water resources management, that I will not go into a detailed description of today, of course, but I think that in this moment, this concept, this theory is really challenged by new, maybe not so new yet, but new issues, including the pressure of climate change, and necessitates for us to really have new recipes for the implementation, the concrete operationalization of IWRM that we have proven now that it is a very effective approach, but that we need really to adapt, to modernize, to extend to very different situations all around the world. And going back to the few words of Under Secretary General, yes, I would like to confirm that the natural hydrographic basin is very care under this increased pressure. Transboundary basins, of course, but also at the national scales for domestic basins, it is absolutely necessary to go beyond the administrative boundaries. And this is really a key factor for peace, since peace is one of the key words of this dialogue of this morning, of today. I think so that we need to really work in parallel at the transboundary basin scale. Of course, I support absolutely this idea, but if we want to do that in an effective, in a relevant manner, we also need to work in parallel at the national levels and even at the local levels. You cannot build an effective dialogue at the transboundary scale if at the national level you don't have the relevant policies. In many cases, you need to have effective public policies, not only in the field of water resources management, of course, but also in other sectors like energy, like agriculture, like health. And if we want to have, again, fruitful and peaceful transboundary approaches, we need to also have these approaches already implemented at the national level. And it is particularly important in this period where the pressure of climate change, of course, modifies a few parameters like temperatures, like the height of the glaciers, for example, in your geography, but also brings a higher frequency of extreme events, as we say. So we need more robust systems and organizations in order to tackle these extreme events. And also another very important consequence of climate change, it is uncertainty, a higher uncertainty in the evolution of the climate, of the temperature, of the river flows, etc. So this necessitates, feedbacks and interrogation on the construction of IWRM implementation, because we have increased needs that we need to meet, not only drinking water supply, of course, but also energy, agriculture, as I already mentioned. And we need to keep the balance between all these needs, all these water uses, and of course, the preservation, and in many cases, the restoration of the ecosystems, the aquatic ecosystems. I think the motto of the Mekong River Commission is meeting the needs, keeping the balance. And this is a very good motto. This is exactly what IWRM now needs to do even better than before. And I'd like to conclude with these aspects, of course, of water and nature integration. Under Secretary General also mentioned that. I think this is also a key point and one of the very effective and efficient solutions if we want to better address not only climate change effects, but also all these increased needs of the human activities. There is no, as we used to say in another and shared with some of you here, action plan, there is no water security without ecological security, and vice versa. There's no ecological security without water security. So this is an important evolution that is under integration in our IWRM practices, including via the acceleration of the implementation of nature-based solutions, not only for ecological purposes, but also as really effective solutions in order to address the effects of climate change, and when we want to guarantee, of course, these human needs. So with all these considerations, I can come back to the pillars of IWRM. I think we are in a period with all the tools, the concrete tools of IWRM are more relevant than ever. Planning is a key aspect, a key pillar of IWRM. It is really important to take it now more seriously than ever because of this uncertainty, because of this competition between water uses. Planning is a key tool. Water information systems, shared data are also key tools at the local level between different types of water users, at the national level between different water policy, public policy designers, so to speak, and of course at the transboundary level. Capacity development is also key within the water community, but also outside the water community, and also with the necessity to build bridges between the different communities, between the different silos of knowledge that we need to interact, to have interaction between them. Because at the end of the day, this is not only about water resources management. This is, of course, about economic development, about agriculture, and about dialogue and peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Trudeau, for raising some important points. And my next speaker is Dr. Atul Bagai. Mr. Atul Bagai joined UN Environment Ozone Action Program under the Montreal Protocol as the Regional Officer for South Asia in 2000 and served as Senior Regional Coordinator to build the capacity of sub-regional networks in Asia and enable them to meet the compliance targets under the Montreal Protocol. Prior to joining UN Environment, he worked with the Government of India for 17 years in a number of senior positions. Right now, Mr. Bagai is head of the UN India office. Dr. Bagai, please.
Thank you, Shweta, and dear Arvind and colleagues. Thanks for inviting me for this very important high-level policy dialogue. And Shweta said I am heading the country office of UNEP in India. I'll be heading it for one more day. Today is my last day in office, and I retired. But I must say that it has been a very exciting journey over the last 6 years. And one part of the exciting journey certainly was working with the India Water Foundation and with Arvind and his team. And I'm really honored to be associated with India Water Foundation and the great work that they've done on water issues, and an area that is not really been looked at very seriously by the civil society organizations. And I'm very happy that India Water Foundation has really taken the lead on this. I am also very enthused by some of the outcomes, and I've been regularly participating in India Water Foundation's events. By the kind of network that Arvind ji and his team has established in India, bringing various organizations working on water issues together. And I think that's a remarkable contribution of India Water Foundation at a national level. And of course, the kind of connections he has at an international level through the International Water Forum are also of immense use to India. I am extremely thankful for being invited for this and giving a very short opening statement. And I wish this event all the best. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bagai, and we wish you all the best for the next innings of yours. Today being the last day of your innings at UNEP India office. Thank you so much. My next speaker is Dr. Eddie Moores. Dr. Eddie Moores is Director of IHE Delft Institute IHE Delft Institute of Water Education. Professor Moores was head of the research team, Climate Change and Adaptive Land and Water Management at Wageningen Environment Research. He is also Professor of Water and Climate at the VU University, Amsterdam. He specialized in the research of climate change mitigation and adaptation. Dr. Moores, please. And I'm sorry for a little technical glitch from my side.
Is it possible for me to use the screen to share some slides?
Sure, absolutely, please.
Because I'm not allowed to share at the moment.
Okay, just a second. Can you share now?
Yes.
Just a second, Dr. Tadu, were you also not able to share the slides?
Yes, I was not able. I was not authorized to do so. That's the reason why I didn't
You
share.
did,
No problem.
tell me at that time, I would have done it. No problem.
Yeah.
We'll do it after Dr. Moon.
No problem.
Hopefully you can see my presentation on your screen. Thank you very much for the invitation. And it's a little bit likely that I'm going to repeat some of the words of the earlier speakers. Also meaning that I agree with what they said quite a lot. And I really like this initiative as well, because I do think it's a quite important initiative. I approach it maybe a little bit from a slightly different side. Inspiration for me, and I guess also for you, is of course World Water Day, which was called Water for Peace. I called my presentation Water and Peace. So I think those two are, one is driving the other, but I do think that they are also combined and that it goes in two directions. And that's what I would like to say a few words about. Just for those who don't know IHE Delft, I hope the slides can be shared later on. We are working actually on request of Bangladesh in 1957 on all sorts of issues related to water. It started from the engineering and the flood side, but at the moment we're also looking at all sorts of other elements, including social and economic issues that are related to water. And that's another reason why I'm so much interested in this particular session, because we strongly believe in the need for interdisciplinarity, because we also see this need for a holistic approach to the present water problems. And we do think that we should train the water professionals in that direction, because we still need experts diving deep, but we also need a lot of people that are aware of this exchange of information, but also exchange of needs between the different sectors. So for me, World Water Day was also strongly connected actually to the release of the report about partnerships and cooperation that took place in Paris last Friday. I just took out a couple of conclusions that appealed to me. I really would like to advise everybody to read the report, because I think it's interesting reading material. It also shows the links actually to some of the things that we do as mankind, and that has an impact on water. But what I picked up was one statement, which is in the circle here, that for nearly every water-related intervention needs some kind of cooperation. So if you want to do something in water, you need a cooperation. And I think what was already said before, you need that, of course, at transboundary level, sometimes not so easy, but you also need it at a very local level. It can even be with your neighbor, or it can even be with family members in family. So it goes through all levels of society. And I think another one is and that's are the two bullet points on this slide, is that I do think everybody plays a role in there. All of us, either representing an organization, but also as an individual. Also for me, that makes a very strong link to this human right to water, which I think is a very important one. So that means that you should be involved in there. But to illustrate that a little bit, so what things do you read in the news? So one thing is, for example, about data centers. Sometimes it's forgotten, and that's the reason for me to put a couple of those newspaper clips here, that other industries also need water, and that those industries are sometimes led also by human needs, human behavior. So I think it's important to include that as well in the PR that we're doing, the way how we communicate about water, where those needs are coming from, but also in which way we're developing it together as society and where those needs are growing. Another one is extreme weather. Of course, agriculture is a very well-known one. Sometimes a little bit forgotten is that in the large rivers, transportation over the waterways is also an important one, which may be hampered quite drastically if we don't deal with that in a good way. Of course, that will mean that the transportation industry will look for other ways, but that means that you get a quite big, I think, pressure on your local roads, but also on your railway, maybe on airplanes. So you will see a shift happening if we don't take care of this as well. And another one is, and this is about agriculture, and I know this is also happening in India, but also in Australia, as you can read from this message. It's of course related to agriculture. It's related to health as well, in a way that Dr. Kumar also described, but also in a number of cases it can even lead to suicide. It's also an important aspect to consider, that if we do something and if we don't take care of that in a good way, that can have a big impression on people. Just to show, it's not conclusive, just to show that there are sometimes some approaches that we tend to forget or oversight because we're not coming from that sector ourselves. And we need other people on board to help us do that. What was mentioned before was population growth and climate change as two important drivers next to other ones. Again, population growth, for me, I really would like to stress that it's not only the number of people, it's also our behavior, our needs that are changing. And that also has a very big impact on the way how we're using water, but also how we need water. And that may lead to competition. And I think climate change is leading to bigger competition for water. And that may, in some cases, lead indeed to conflicts that you will find out. And particular in cases where there are also fragile contexts. Fragile means that it is in a region where you have not a lot of water, but it can also mean that it's a society that's fragile. Maybe because other unrest are taking place or other resources that are limited there as well. So a couple of examples, completely different examples there. The Horn of Africa, shortage of water, the floodings taking place in the sub-wetlands area, but also the discussion about how you distribute water in the Nile. And I think the quite difficult discussions that you have there that goes across boundaries. This is something that you may have seen also in the newspaper. That depicts the Sahel region, where you only have 200 to 800 millimeters of rain on a yearly basis, which is not a lot. If it's coincidence, maybe not. But what you do see that in almost all those countries, those are the gray countries, you have actually unrest. You have a coup d'etat that took place in those areas, and partly we think that's also caused by local unrest. What you see actually, and that's why I'm also putting this picture here, is that it did not lead to transboundary conflicts a lot, although transboundary discussions, but not to armed conflicts. But it has led to quite some unrest and conflicts locally in those countries. And that's one of the other things, and that was also mentioned before. Often transboundary issues about water lead to cooperation in the end, and I think that's also shown in a lot of the different transboundary cases that we've looked at. But what you do see is that at the local level, sometimes shortage and distribution of water in an unequitable way may lead to indeed local conflicts that take place. And those unrests may lead to migration, as was mentioned before. That migration often leads to urbanization in a certain way, and that urbanization may lead then to a bigger migration that takes place. So that's behind there. If you're interested, we developed a program and an early warning system, which is called Water, Peace and Security. It's based actually on data indicating where we see shortages coming and happening on water and then on food, but also it's based on social media and other media that are taking place that also depicts, say, the exchange of information. This is really meant actually to warn countries and to get into discussion with them about potential unrest that may take place and how you can do that. In this slide, I very briefly show the way how we try to do that. So it's by informing people, so sharing data, which was mentioned before as well, creating an understanding. Often that's done on a more technical level. Then also by mobilizing resources that you need, but also how you learn. Okay, what measures can you take? What is the impact of those measures in your own area, but also what impact may that have in other areas? You're creating a dialogue by this combined learning, and then in the end that should lead to an action which is then supported by the different stakeholders that are in this conflict. This can be used and is used as well in a lot of, say, catchment areas, but it can also be used in transboundary issues that may take place. So if you're interested, please look at the former website that I mentioned. And then in Paris, I was in a panel session and I just took out a couple of statements that came out of that panel sessions, and I thought that could also be of interest to you. One thing is that if you're really looking for true peace, so not only the absence of conflict, then you need cooperation. And that's especially needed if you're looking for transboundary cooperation. If you look for transboundary cooperation, it's not only about water, it's mentioned before. You also have this transboundary cooperation on the basis of health, sometimes even on the exchange of resources like population, helping people out, but food passing as well, but also on energy. And there are a lot of different issues that are there. That's not so much for this technical cooperation. That's where you end up in these political discussions, which is an important part also of those, I think, transboundary issues. Then if you really would like to change these transboundary conflicts, and I'm now talking also about administrative boundaries here, then you need behavioral change. And behavioral change is maybe the most difficult change that we ask people to do. Personally, I hope that with our youth, I think that we have a big opportunity to do that. But that also means that we have to listen to what the youths are telling us. And I think it's important that we realize that they are going to be the future. They are going to be the people that will decide in the end, but also will have to live with decisions that are being taken and which those we can actually help them. From IHE Delft, we have a couple of programs there that I just want to mention if you're interested there. We have a Young Water Diplomats program, but we also have a project where we have cross-regional learning for water diplomacy, where we create a possibility for students actually to study in one another's country, and students coming from the same catchment area, so for riparian countries. And I think the last summary there, so cross-boundary water cooperation is more common than cross-boundary water conflicts, which is, I hope, a positive signal, and people will use that more often. Conflicts are very often coming from a local scale, so please pay attention to what's happening at the local scale, but also start to look for solutions. I think Dr. Joe already mentioned that. Start at the national level. I fully agree that you need that as well as a starting point. And then often the lack of effective governance, and I think that's also where this IWRM can play a role in, may also lead to an ineffective dispute resolution. So you need something like that to start this dispute resolution mechanisms. The important part is there also communication, and then a form with non-violent communication if possible, because otherwise you're only creating bigger differences in there. I also marked two potential websites if you're interested to learn more about it. And my last slide is actually the Water for Peace symbol from UN Water, which I really hope we manage to make a step this year, being the World Water Year on water and peace. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moores, and especially, telling us how drastic the implications of water scarcity, which is leading to, droughts, etc., are, especially for human lives, because people are committing suicides due to lack of water and droughts. And however, there are issues, but we can address them, as you've mentioned in your slides. So thank you so much. My next speaker is Dr. Rajan Sudesh Ratna, a PhD in economics from Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, New Delhi, MPhil in Environment Science from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, and done an executive program on trade policy and negotiations from Harvard University, Boston. Presently working as Deputy Head of South and Southwest Asia Office of UN ESCAP, New Delhi since August 2018, and leading research policy advisory and capacity building on helping countries accelerate progress towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Dr. Ratna, please.
Thank you. Can I share my screen?
Yes, Dr. Ratna, you can. And once you share your screen and you're done with your presentation, then we'll go to Dr. Tadu as well.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Ratna, please.
So first of all, let me thank India Water Foundation and also Arvind ji and Shweta ji, for both of you for giving me this opportunity to come and share some of our experiences. Of course, our Executive Secretary and the Secretary General of UN, Ibu Armida, has already spoken. So I'm not going to discuss with those statistics, but I just wanted to share with you some of our work which is being done by our colleagues in Bangkok. And especially drawing your attention, our office in Delhi looks into South and Southwest Asia, which covers 10 countries starting from Turkey, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives. And the Asia Pacific is already there. But if you see in both these cases, and especially relating to SDG 6, which is clean water and sanitation, you can see in 2023 target, we are way behind in Asia Pacific level. And if you compare that with South and Southwest Asia, this region is further much slower in progress in SDG 6. Now, as has been highlighted, water is something like a circular cycle that everything in the livelihood we do require. Southwest Asia, many of the countries, livelihood issues and number of employment is on agriculture, and you require water for your crops. But still, the challenge of water is flood. We have seen in Pakistan a couple of years ago, cyclone in Bangladesh and some of the countries, including India, we get affected because of that. Water pollution, clean water, all these issues are very, very relevant, but we are regressing in Southeast Asia. Now, if you go further at a micro level to see where we are in terms of SDG 6 and especially the targets, again, you can make a comparative note of saying that this is specific. But the target 6.6.1, you see, we are way behind in permanent water body extent. Rather, it's going in a negative direction. Even in South Asia, and that is where we are looking into the water stress, if you look, we are going in a negative direction, and also in the permanent water body extent. And while the policies and procedures for participating water and sanitation management is slightly more better in terms of Asia and Pacific, but in terms of if you see South and Southwest Asia, the gap is much wider, and therefore it clearly shows that whatever policies and procedures are there in the sub-region need to be more strengthened, more effective usage of the policies would be required. Water stress is another. And then if you look at the water use efficiency, again, we are much more behind. In open defecation and hand washing, the Southwest Asia has done better than Asia and Pacific, and this could be because of the leadership that Government of India has taken into this regard. So it would also impact a little bit in the having a better progress. So the gap is less than these. Now, looking at all these, what these diagrams or pictures show, it highlights certain imperatives. There is definitely a lot which needs to be done in terms of SDG Goal 6 and the policy interventions, which areas, which target we need to put the policies and the support more also comes from these events. So we are already in the middle of 2014, already almost 9 years in the 9th year we are, and we are left with very less time. Being that, unless the efforts for achieving SDG Goal 6 are double in terms of the policy, in terms of financing development, other efforts, or even a participation, all-inclusive participation or multi-stakeholder participation. Unless these efforts are developed, neither in South and Southwest Asia, to certain extent in Asia Pacific, Goal 6 will be met, or at least some of the times. And that is where we have been promoting on towards having regional cooperation, sharing of best practices, and we are very happy because India Water Foundation is one of our partners. We are also promoting these through these good practices and sharing of experiences through. We have a South and Southwest Asia network of SDGs, where the think tanks, the policy makers, civil society, and the private sector, they all come participate. We had a focused discussion on SDG 6 also 2 years ago, and it very clearly came out from the study done by India Foundation, presentation done, and also in the sub-regional dialogue that we organized, that it has a multifaceted action impact, as I've been saying. A systems thinking is required because water and cycle can impact livelihood, can impact environment, can impact soil pollution, can impact air pollution, water pollution, of course, is there. Sanitation, the urbanization is another challenge which is putting stress on the water, planning of the cities, and proper sanitation system is required. So there is a lot to be done, and the countries need not really remember in the wheel. There are a lot of international organizations who are specifically dedicated to working towards this. What is required is how to bridge this gap of knowledge. And then the last, which I would like to touch upon, is technology.
And again, this year, World Water Week is going to be welcoming people from all over the world to speak to this year's World Water Day theme, dedicated to water cooperation for peace and security in its broadest sense. The theme, Bridging Borders, Water for a Peaceful and Sustainable Future, asks us to recognize the regional and global interconnectivity of communities and nations, and underscores the collaborative effort that's needed to achieve a peaceful and sustainable future. So there'll be a lot of interesting continued discussions on this theme, and I hope to see you there. However, CIWI also supports a number of other multi-stakeholder partnerships and platforms that can serve as inspiration for supporting this cross-sectoral collective action and fostering peace and cooperation. For example, the CIWI hosts the Action Platform for Source to Sea Management, which seeks to bridge upstream and downstream communities and harmonize different legal frameworks to work better together. For example, those that regulate oceans and those that regulate freshwater. We also coordinate the Water for Climate Pavilion Collective at each climate COP so that the international water community can speak with one voice towards the climate community and provide water solutions that actually improve climate resilience. CIWI is also a member of the Transboundary Water Cooperation Coalition, which was inaugurated at the UN 2023 conference. It's a multi-stakeholder partnership of more than 30 governments and organizations that encourages more ambitious commitments for transboundary water cooperation in 4 specific areas. And those are legal and institutional dimensions, data, information, knowledge, and technical support, capacity development, and funding and financing. So because transboundary waters account for 60% of the world's freshwater flows and more than 3 billion people depend on them, progress for transboundary water cooperation needs to be accelerated to promote sustainable economic development, human and environmental health, biodiversity, climate action and resilience, disaster risk reduction, and peace in those basins. What all of these different initiatives prove is that we are stronger when we act together, and that platforms like these for sharing knowledge, learning from each other, and coordinating action are more important now than ever. But we can't talk about water for peace without speaking to the responsibilities of states within their boundaries and across watershed borders to improve cooperation and management of shared water resources for multiple purposes. In this context, governments can be encouraged to do a number of things. So first, governments need to stay informed on the most important scientific knowledge about systemic water challenges and solutions that are applicable to their basins, and make sure that that information is shared across boundaries, as mentioned earlier by the UN Undersecretary General and also by Dr. Tardieu. Second, in addition to formal processes, governments should also utilize multi-track diplomacy, participatory governance processes, and multi-stakeholder platforms to build trust and forge common understanding of risks and opportunities among those concerned. Formal and informal dialogues, including non-state actors and political decision makers, are essential to yield a common vision and shared goals on how to work together more effectively for the allocation and management of shared waters. So both formal and informal mechanisms need to be available and work together in order to share knowledge and exchange perspectives that will contribute to building trust and confidence. This can also be accompanied by specific training and water diplomacy approaches for targeted groups of stakeholders so that they can make the most of these tools for constructive dialogue and negotiation. Third, governments, and we've heard this many times before, need to increase political priority for water, because if you don't get the water right, you can't get the rest of it right. And getting the rest of it right implies governing and managing all the related challenges and solutions together in a given basin through a holistic source-to-sea approach, and not one that segments and isolates upstream from downstream or isolates competing needs, but one that takes into account all of the pressures on an entire system, be it water, food, energy, health, environment, including exacerbations from climate change impacts. So why isn't that done more? Well, it's hard and it's messy and it's challenging. So it's not easy, but we still need to encourage that approach. This also implies, like Dr. Kumar mentioned in his introduction, reinforcing the institutions and investments that work in this way through the implementation of these cooperative frameworks for shared waters. And one final thing that governments can do is to support gender transformative processes that enable women's participation in water diplomacy and transboundary water management to a greater extent. It's important to note that according to UN Women, not even 10% of negotiators in peace processes are women, and their presence is also lacking, especially at higher levels of decision-making. A gender gap persists in the water sector generally, and in the transboundary water sector specifically. However, gender-inclusive peace processes have been found to last longer and be more resilient, and peace agreements that are endorsed by women are more positively related to durable agreements. One key UN report from 2015 states that women in peace processes push for the commencement, resumption, or finalization of negotiations when the momentum had stalled or the talks had faltered. This is particularly important in decade-long transboundary water dialogues. So according to recent research, empowerment of female decision makers is key for sustainable and inclusive water cooperation and for the mitigation of conflict risk in transboundary situations. One example of an effort to increase the presence and capacity of women negotiators is the Women in Water Diplomacy Network. This network is an informal community of practice consisting of experienced and novice women who work with transboundary water issues in the Nile Basin through ministries, civil society, and academia. The main goal of the network is to increase women's empowerment and leadership in high-level decision-making in transboundary basins. Launched by CIWI's Shared Waters program in 2017 in Uganda, The Women in Water Diplomacy Network provides a platform to discuss common challenges, share experience, enhance understanding of each other and their country's perspectives, build trust, and support each other to seek mutually beneficial opportunities for cooperation to achieve sustainable water for all. Similar initiatives are also being undertaken in Central Asia and Afghanistan and North Africa. So, in conclusion, I'd just like to say that water partnerships can foster peace and encourage cooperation, have many different shapes and sizes, but each one is only as strong or as active as the people that compose them. These partnerships and platforms depend on each and every one of us to make them successful at a time when cooperation across sectors, across stakeholders, across levels, across borders is not a luxury, it's an imperative. Thank you once again for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you today, and I'd be happy to share more about any of these activities I've mentioned for those who are interested.
Thank you so much, Danny, and emphasizing on how important it is to share data across basins and the excellent work that CV is doing through their watershed program. So thank you so much for your intervention. Any parting remarks, Dr. Kumar?
Yes, undoubtedly, governments and agencies like UN, intergovernmental organizations, academia, etc., and other have a strong commitment to water sector, but it's the people's participation that makes all the difference. Engagement with partner organization is vital for a tangible result on the ground, and it is not just a top-down approach, but also a bottom-up approach by sensitizing, incentivizing, and galvanizing the stakeholders. We have to bring the communities, civil societies, and state agencies together for integrated cross-sectoral participation through cooperation, coordination, convergence. With all these tremendous efforts, a little more nudge is needed to invest in educate infrastructure, adopt a circular approach, elicit international cooperation to encourage efficiency, support treatment, technologies, and protect and restore water-related ecosystems. I strongly feel that all these critical juncture, there is a dire need to redesign sectoral interventions. We should revitalize our ecosystems. Freshwater is the backbone of economic and environmental value creation, and therefore require close cooperation within and within basins, along with supply chains, as well as among sectors and countries. But we have to understand, we have an optimized and coordinated planning, policy, regulation, and financing process for these linkages? We have to see how successful we are at the basin planning to enhance disaster risk reduction, to manage water bodies in the integrated and data sensitive, participative, and inclusive manner. Optimize financing, improve data and information, enhanced capacity, innovations, and enhanced governance. When all it comes together, it is a transversality approach. Now, these accelerators need to be filled with actions by all actors and together with other sectors for complete water security. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for summing it up so beautifully. Professor Moose, your parting comments, please.
Yes, maybe that I very much appreciate that all the presentations from the different speakers and also the added remarks from Dr. Kumar. One thing that I would like to stress, because I always forget it, because for me it doesn't make sense to forget groundwater. And if I talk about water, I always mean surface water and groundwater, but I sometimes think that we should make it explicit as well, which I would like to do. That everything that was said, I think, encompasses surface water as well as groundwater, and I think that's also important to remember. So thank you.
Danny?
No, it was just a real pleasure to be here today and to hear the interventions of the different speakers. There was so much good information to take away. And again, cooperation is the key. I think that's been said again and again. So thank you.
Dr. Ratna?
Well, I would echo some of my panel colleagues. Again, I will congratulate India Water Foundation for organizing or hosting this event, getting us around. As I was talking about sharing of good practices, it's also sharing of good ideas. So while we are working on these issues, hearing other panel members and their interesting experiences, the work which they are doing, I think also among all of us, there is a need for a better cooperation and coordination. And I think India Water Foundation can also join these links together. Yeah, because I mean, partnership is one of the pillars, five pillars of SDGs. And often, though we all talk about it, that there are still many of these gaps which exist. And so it leads to a lot of replication of effort among the agencies. So thank you very much.
Definitely, Dr. Ratna, what you've said, cooperation, collaboration, coordination is the key to move ahead in this regard. After listening to all the esteemed speakers, what I gather from this dialogue is that we need to adopt and promote a water systems partnership to overcome challenges through solutions that are beneficial for all. The scope and ambition of the 2030 agenda and the already existing financing gap within the water sector demand more than traditional public finance and ODA, which is being done extensively in water sector now. They require collective and inclusive efforts from governments, banks, the private sector, philanthropy, as well as civil society, for which a stable regulatory, institutional, and policy environment is essential. Water-related data and information are critical to understand the social, economic, and environmental demands and complexity of water challenges, and to effectively target measures and funding. Only with capacities to effectively collect, analyze, and share data, informed decisions and policies, planning, and investments can translate data to action. To invest and support institutions to operate fit for purpose monitoring systems based on local needs and capacities, which are able to collect qualitative, accessible, timely, and reliable gender disaggregated data as the basis for decision making and public information. The need to consider interdependencies and co-benefits with other sectors in planning, policy making, and action requires capacity, knowledge, and the willingness to overcome sector and institutional boundaries. Research and development, innovative technical as well as financial solutions, but also new inclusive governance and circular business models are a must when working towards accelerated cross-sectoral implementation. Multi-sector and multi-stakeholder approaches are needed at the systemic level to optimize the use of scarce resources, accounting for the maximization of co-benefits and minimization of trade-offs, to manage conflicting and cross-sectoral interests, and to ensure accountability. There is no doubt that climate change and changing land use patterns will induce more stress on our natural resources, including water, in the years to come. Therefore, viewing this as an opportunity for peace building rather than a potential conflict in the making would create a more viable transitional pathway towards a sustainable future. We are grateful to UN ESCAP and Ministry of Jalshakti, Government of India, for supporting this event. Thank you, dignitaries, all the experts, speakers. India Water Foundation and its partners are grateful to you for taking out time from your extremely busy schedule and gracing this event. I also thank my wonderful online audience who have joined from all over the world from different time zones and had benefited immensely, I'm sure, from these deliberations. Thank you so much. I hope next time we do not have these technical glitches. Thank you.